So I have a chronic intractable migraine, which basically just means I have a migraine all the time. And this has been going on for 2.5 years, which is why I'm wearing these lenses because my natural state is living in a dark cave. And Zoom does not like it when you live in a dark cave. And I want you to be able to see what I look like. So, in an attempt to find out why this migraine is happening, which has not yet been answered, last year I got a spinal tap, and the thing about spinal taps is that sometimes after you get one, you end up with a cerebral spinal fluid leak, which basically just means that sitting up for longer than like 30 minutes really sucks. And there's a pretty easy fix for this most of the time. That's a blood patch. And if you're squeamish, do not look up what a blood patch is because you will not have a good time. And you don't get a blood patch like right away. You have to wait a little bit to see if your cerebral spinal fluid leak will resolve on its own. So, I get the spinal tap. I hang out in bed for most of a week. And I'm like, this is not going away. So I go through the process of trying to get an appointment to get a blood patch. And my neurologist's office says, yes, we will make an appointment. I'm like, great. And then I call the place where I'm supposed to have an appointment. And they say, we don't have you on record. And I say, great. And then I call back my neurologist's office. And they say, your neurologist just went home for the weekend. He'll be back Tuesday because it's Memorial Day. It's Memorial Day weekend. And I say, great. And then I go and I lie back down in bed and I cry because that's how I cope with things. And the next, so the next morning, I'm done crying. I'm like, okay, I can't wait until Tuesday. I've been lying in bed doing nothing for a week. I can't keep doing this. It is now Saturday. And I call the advice line and they say, you should just go to the ER. And I say, okay, fine, I'll spend my Saturday in the ER. I don't have anything else going on. Oh, the thing is that Saturday is my mom's high school reunion. She is my ride to the ER because I don't want to take an ambulance and I don't want to take an Uber that far. So the plan is that me and my mom and her friend who was driven up from North Carolina to go to this high school reunion will drive over to their friend's house from high school who lives closer to the hospital. And then I, from there, will call an Uber. And I will go to the ER, and my mom and her friends will go to the high school reunion. And then when I'm done, they'll come and pick me up. So we get over there. I'm sprawled out on the couch. I'm making friends with the cats, Edgar Allan and Poe. And a car pulls up outside. And my mom says, oh, is that your Uber? And I say, no, my Uber's not going to be here for another few minutes. And the door opens, and out comes Dick Saslaw, Virginia State Legislative Representative, who has been the state legislative representative since I was born, since before I was born. He's like 70 years old. And he comes in, he's wearing a suit and a blue tie and an American flag pin. And I am sprawled on the couch wearing a dress I got from Target that was sold as pajamas. And to his credit, he doesn't say a thing about that. He just starts giving his stump speech about how like education is important and so on and so forth. And about halfway through his stump speech, my Uber arrives and I just get up and I leave. I don't say anything to him and he doesn't say anything to me. And I just get out of there. And I get to the ER and I'm like, hi, I'm here to get a blood patch. I have a cerebral spinal fluid leak. And they say, how do you know? And I have that brief moment of anxiety of like, when somebody asks you your birthday and you forget what your birthday is. And you're like, oh no, when was I born? And it's like, I had a spinal tap. I don't know what else this could be. My neurologist said I should come here. So they decide that I'm not very high up on their triage list because I seem to be coping fine. So they send me to sit in the waiting room, which I've been to before. I've been to that ER before. It's pretty boring. There's not a lot to do in an ER waiting room. And there's no good place to lie down, which is what I really want to do because I had to sit up in the Uber on the way there. And I'm starting to get up on my 30 minutes of being able to be upright without having a really bad time. So I'm going between sitting upright and having a pretty bad time and just like leaning over my legs and having a bad time, but different. And I go back and forth between those like, 4 or 5 times. I do a little bit of a crossword puzzle that somebody left, just hanging out watching other people also have a bad time in the ER, and eventually I get called back. It's like, you know, 3:30, 4 p.m., and I get called back to a room. I'm like, "Great, I get to lie down." They get me an IV and they say, "Okay, the person who can do your blood patch who's covered by your insurance won't be available until 8 p.m. Are you okay with that?" And I say, "Sure, fine. I've already waited around. I don't have anything else to do. I'm in the sunk cost fallacy at this point. I'll just hang out." So I like take a bit of a nap. I read a bit of the book that I brought. I watch a little bit of a documentary about the Apollo program that was playing on the TV. And I get woken up at like 6:30 and they're like, "Great news. The person who can do your blood patch is available early." I'm like, "Yes." So they come in, they start to get everything set up. They raise the bed that I'm on up pretty high. Like I'm like 5'3". It feels like it's taller than my height. And I say, "Wow, sure hope I don't faint." Like out loud, just invoking Murphy's Law here. And then they do the blood patch procedure, and I start to feel kind of sweaty and a little bit out of it. And I'm like, huh, that's kind of weird. And then the next thing that I'm fully aware of, I'm lying down, and the nurse is saying, "You're fine." And I say, "Wait, was I not fine? Is something wrong?" They say, "You're fine. Your blood pressure is returning to normal. We're going to run some fluids." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And while I have just fainted, I do feel a lot better. And that means that I get to go home because the blood patch worked. So they, take out my IVs, give me some band-aids. I get dressed. I head out into the waiting room. I let my mom know that I'm ready to be picked up, and I start to head outside. And the person at the front desk is like, "Oh, are you waiting for your ride?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You can wait in here." And I'm like, "No, thank you. No, I'm good. I'll just stand outside. It's okay. It's fine." And I go and I stand outside and I wait to get picked up. And that's the last time that I went to the ER. And now, if I'm having a problem, I know to try to get in contact with my doctor before a 3-day weekend.